Story 1. Layover 212. 2:12 a.m. Silent airport hotel hallway. The room tag now shows a different signature. The hallway outside my room sounded like the inside of a seashell. Carpet that swallowed steps. Doors with soft close hinges pretending to be kind. I checked in under the name I use when I work. No luggage tag with it. No paper trail. Just the door tag where I wrote it again, neat in a firm hotel pen. I said it out loud once just to hear how it might sound on someone else's tongue. The air tasted like dust and refrigerated coffee. I locked the handle, the deadbolt, the chain, habit more than fear. Nothing moved. Then someone walked past, a single pair of footsteps, finding the echo sweet enough to keep. At the desk, the night clerk and I had stood close because the counter was narrow. Our shoulders almost touched. Clean, recent perfume, citrus and starch, hung between us, and my sleeve grazed hers like a quiet test, a light graze that could pass for clumsy. The overhead LED drew a thin line on her mouth when she said my Mr. Hale, the fake, and held the pen too long. Her warm breath fogged a fraction of the plexiglass, then vanished as if it had somewhere else to be. I adjusted my collar, small, practiced, and she watched the motion instead of my eyes. The door tag she'd given me had a faint second groove, as if someone had pressed a different name, then thought better. "Enjoy your rest," she murmured, timing the silence so I felt the sentence end inside my ear. The elevator dinged once but no doors opened. When I turned back toward the corridor, the air conditioning kicked on and the hallway chose not to say why. Inside the room, the curtains breathed in time with the vent. I unpacked nothing, just laid the keycard on the desk and checked the mirror, half expecting to see the real me still out in the hallway. I adjusted the collar again, this time slower, my fingers brushing the warm fabric where my neck met the cotton. The gesture left a faint heat that didn't belong to the air. On the door, the tag caught the light from the bedside lamp. My handwriting looked off. A second line, thinner, curved beneath it, same letters but older, written in another hand. I blinked, leaned closer. The scent of fresh ink and that same citrus note from the clerk rose together, sweet and wrong. A voice floated through the wall, low and rhythmical, someone on speakerphone, or rehearsing. I leaned in, listening, until it pressed against the edge of whisper. Then silence. The AC unit exhaled hard, stirring the hotel smell of detergent and skin. A paper card slid off the desk with a gust. When I picked it up, it was a business card, white, glossy, with my fake name printed in perfect serif. Same name. Same alias. Different number. My pulse ticked in my teeth. I set it down, but the air hadn't stopped moving, as if someone else had just left the room. I cracked the door and looked both ways. Nothing, just that airport hush between departures. The carpet seemed to hum under the lights. I almost laughed. Maybe the clerk liked games. Maybe she'd copied the name for her notes. But when I looked closer, the handwriting on the tag had changed again. Now the second line was darker, pressed deeper into the paper as if a heavy hand had traced it from the other side. The pen mark was still wet. I touched it with my thumb, and it left a faint smear, warm despite the cold air. A timed silence held the corridor still, waiting for me to shut the door. Back inside, I sat on the edge of the bed, one knee under the other. The chair across from me creaked, drywood shifting or something sitting down too quietly. I told myself I was tired, jet-lagged, ready to see ghosts in the seams. Then the soft knock came, the same rhythm the bellboy had used earlier, two short, one long. I didn't move. The air grew thick, humid near the vent. My knee brushed the small table leg and the contact stayed, an accident that didn't retract. Through the peephole, I saw a shadow dragging a suitcase down the hall. A tag hung from its handle. My alias, written perfectly, swung as it moved. The wheels squealed once and stopped outside my door. I could hear the quiet slide of fabric, like someone adjusting a sleeve before knocking again. My throat felt tight, the kind of tension that tastes metallic. I reached for the peephole a second time, but before I touched it, a strand of hair brushed my cheek, static from nowhere or the air shifting wrong. I stepped back. My reflection in the dark TV showed my hand still raised, fingers trembling just enough to catch the screen's glow. I told myself to breathe, to keep the script. Escorts don't panic. We perform calm. But the shadow on the other side stayed exactly where it was, waiting for its cue. The hallway light flickered once, then held steady. We both waited, me inside, whoever was outside. The air conditioner shut off, and the silence that followed had a pulse. I could hear my own breathing, and a second one layered beneath, warm and steady, close to the door. A time pause passed, too long to be normal. Then a whisper, not words, just a breath that shaped meaning without sound. The room responded with a creak from the window frame, as if something outside had leaned its weight there. I didn't dare look. The smell of cologne and dust pressed into the carpet. The suitcase rolled again, slow, deliberate, dragging that tag through the air. When I finally opened the door, the hallway was empty. The tag was gone. Only a faint smudge of ink clung to the wood where it had hung. I followed the marks toward the corner, shoe prints, half dry, leading nowhere. The scent in the air had changed again. Clean soap overlaid with something sharp, the kind that stays in your clothes longer than it should. I stepped back inside, shut the door, and felt the lock click twice. My pulse matched it. I turned the lamp lower, trying to make the room forget me. The bedspread was rumpled, though I hadn't sat there. On the center of the sheet lay the torn door tag, my alias ripped clean down the middle. I touched it with the tips of my fingers. A faint heat lingered, like the trace of someone's hand. The tag smelled faintly of cologne, the same note from the hallway. Beside it, on the pillow, a single shoe print pointed toward the window. The curtains moved, though the glass was sealed. Outside, the runway lights pulsed, patient, counting seconds. I stared at the torn tag until my vision swam, then felt the first drop of sweat slide down the back of my neck, soft and electric. I checked the window latch, still locked. But the curtains breathed inward, brushing my arm as if exhaling. The fabric's edge grazed my wrist, light as a test. For a second, I smelled that same perfume freshly passed, close enough to make the skin at my neck tighten. Then came the whisper, low and deliberate, "You left the tag." It felt delivered right beside my ear, though no one was there. My breath caught. The silence held its own pressure, folding around me. I turned toward the mirror. My reflection was alone, but the bed behind me wasn't. On the pillow, the torn tag was whole again, the ink darker, the time changed. 3 o'clock. I didn't wait for the minute hand to reach it. I packed fast, just the essentials, and left the room without looking back. Down the hallway, every door had a tag now. Each bore my handwriting. Each waited. I passed them in silence, counting steps, not daring to breathe too loudly. At the lobby, the clerk was gone, her chair still warm. The scent of her perfume floated near the desk, sweet, persistent, marking the air like a signature. I dropped my keycard, but it fell on a folded paper already waiting for me, my tag again written clean and new. Beneath my alias, one line read, "What if your name tag could find you?" Story 2. The name on the bill. Night, downtown hotel room reserved under a fake name. The printed receipt lists new items. I checked in under the name Jonathan Keene. It wasn't mine, but the card matched, and the desk clerk didn't blink. Layover work always ran smoother when no one remembered my face. The room smelled faintly of detergent and someone else's cologne, clean, practiced, impersonal. I told myself I'd sleep before the next flight. The city outside pulsed through the curtains, low and blue, like a slow heartbeat trying to sync with mine. She'd left hours earlier. Or maybe she never came. The pillow still held the shape of her hair, a whisper of perfume just passed. I leaned on the window frame. The glass was cool, the air humid. My shoulder brushed the curtain, a light touch like static finding skin. Down below, traffic lights changed without anyone crossing. Somewhere between their rhythm and mine, the silence shifted, and my phone lit up on the table. The alert said, "Service completed 1:42 a.m. I blinked. At 1:42 I'd been asleep, or trying to be. Still, the timestamp pulsed like a quiet accusation. I thumbed through the app. No requests, no messages, nothing. Just that one line glowing. I adjusted my shirt collar, restless. The fabric rasped against warm skin, enough friction to remind me I was real. The air felt heavier, as if the room had inhaled. Then the phone buzzed again. Same alert. Same time. The sound spilled too close, a low breath grazing my ear before it vanished. I turned, half expecting her voice. Only the minibar light answered, flickering once. The receipt on the desk quivered under the AC draft. My name wasn't on it, but someone had circled room 317 in ink. That wasn't this room. And still, the mark looked fresh, the line pressed hard enough to tear. I tried to shake it off. Jet lag, coincidence, some glitch in the booking system. But when I reached for my jacket, something crisp slid from the inner pocket. A small hotel slip, same logo, same font, except it listed room 913. This building only went up to 8 floors. The paper smelled faintly of citrus and another person's skin, like perfume left on borrowed fabric. I ran a thumb over the print. The ink wasn't dry. I sat on the edge of the bed, the city hum filtering through the glass. Our knees might have touched if someone else were here. The sheet rustled, fabric against fabric, though I hadn't moved. I told myself it was air pressure, the kind that tricks you into feeling watched. On the table, the receipt lifted a corner, as if the breath of the room wanted to read it too. The mirror caught me at an angle, pale light on half a face, half a memory. I reached up, brushing a stray lock from my forehead. The motion felt rehearsed, as if guided by another hand. A faint tremor followed the path of my fingers, skin tightening under invisible breath. Somewhere behind me, fabric sighed again, the sound of someone standing up when they shouldn't exist. The quiet thickened. A shared pause, the kind that makes the air damp. I didn't move. The clock blinked 1:42. Again. The phone, the receipt, the silence, all synced in that impossible rhythm. I could hear my own pulse over the hum of the minibar. I waited for something, a knock, a word, but nothing came. Only the soft awareness of space shrinking, as though another body had entered it and chosen not to speak. When the TV clicked on by itself, I almost laughed. Reflex defense. The screen glowed blank for a second before numbers bled through the static, 317, then flickered again to display my street address back home. My real one. I stood, pulse sharp. The remote lay untouched on the nightstand. I could feel warm air trace the back of my neck, a whisper of breath where no one stood. The curtain lifted and fell like someone had just left. I crossed to the desk. The receipt now had another line, handwritten this time. Duplicate service, pending charge. The ink shimmered faintly, still warm against my fingertips. I pressed it flat, half expecting it to react. It did, curling once as though recoiling from my touch. The paper smelled faintly of burnt plastic, maybe ozone. The printer hadn't run, yet the scent was new, alive, a promise of more to come. The room dimmed. Only the receipt glowed under the lamp. I checked my phone, another alert. Charge confirmed, 2:42 a.m. 1 hour ahead. My balance halved itself, neat and clean. I felt the air stir, a faint murmur against my ear, almost my name, almost hers. I turned. The reflection in the mirror didn't. For a second it smiled, subtle, like someone remembering a private joke. At dawn I packed fast. The receipt was gone from the desk. I found it again later, folded inside the microwave, still warm, the ink barely dry. My real name was on it this time. I stood there, hand trembling over the keypad, waiting for a sound that might explain everything. None came. Only that warmth, pulsing through paper, through skin. Who pays when you disappear? Story 3. Check-in without a name. Rainy afternoon, highway motel. Staff badge with the narrator's face. Rain chased me down the highway like a bad client that wouldn't let go. I pulled into the motel because its sign still worked, half the letters anyway. Inside the glass booth, A machine blinked self-check-in in polite green. The place smelled of wet carpet and old perfume, like someone had been getting ready for hours and never left. My fake ID slid in without protest. The printer hummed once, and stamped the receipt with 2 words that didn't belong to me: active user. I laughed just to test the echo. The air was warm, heavier near the counter where someone had sprayed fresh cleaner. Citrus, sweet, too clean for this hour. My shoulder brushed the partition. Static climbed my sleeve. Through the glass reflection, my mouth seemed to move half a second late. The monitor flickered. That's when I noticed the ashtray beside it, and the badge lying there. Plastic. Laminated. My photo. My face caught mid-breath like I'd been called from behind. I reached for the badge before thinking. My collar shifted as I bent down, the fabric brushing my neck, a reminder that I hadn't changed since the drive. The laminate was still warm, as if someone had just set it there. My fingertips scraped the rough edge of tape, catching on a corner where the photo met air. The name field was blank. The employee number, printed deep blue, matched the last 4 digits of my ID. I checked the clock on the monitor. It showed today's date. Same as the one under my picture. A voice came from the hallway, soft, female, too close to be a mistake. "Sir?" she said, but it landed near my ear, not through the open door. The air behind me changed temperature, warm then cooler, like a breath retreating. I turned, slow, careful not to look startled. Only a cleaning cart stood there, towels folded with impossible precision. I waited for footsteps. Heard none. The badge felt heavier in my hand than plastic should. I signed the logbook anyway, a habit from rooms that ask no questions. The pen left small bruises of ink, like each stroke remembered another lie. Behind the counter, a single camera blinked red, pausing longer than it should between blinks. I almost smiled at it, old reflex, before realizing I couldn't see my reflection in the convex mirror above the door. Only the rain streaks. Only movement that didn't sync with mine. The dining area was empty except for a vending machine and a flickering lamp. I took the far booth, trying to read the badge again under the table light. My knee brushed metal. No, softer. A leg. The other person didn't move. For a second I thought maybe I'd imagined it. But the pressure stayed light, deliberate. The air smelled faintly of perfume recently passed. Clean, neutral, like something designed to erase what came before. I didn't look up. Neither did whoever sat across from me. A strand of hair fell across my sleeve. Too fine to be mine. I reached instinctively to brush it away, fingertips meeting air, then skin. Bare, cool, gone before I could decide whether it was real. The space smelled faintly like rain drying on fabric, that quick warmth before the chill returns. The skin beneath my touch had reacted, or maybe it was mine that trembled. Either way, the air carried a new static. The kind that waits for someone to say the wrong name. Silence settled like dust. Even the vending machine stopped humming. I counted breaths, one mine, one not. The clock above reception clicked but didn't move forward. We stayed there, whoever we were, suspended in that still air. The badge rested on the table between us, reflecting half a face I couldn't match to any seat. When the power came back in a short blink, the other half of the reflection was gone. Only my picture remained, eyes slightly open as if mid-blink. I stood to leave, needing air that hadn't been shared. The glass door resisted, its metal frame slick from condensation. Outside, the parking lot glowed under the neon sign, vacancy flickering like it couldn't decide. That's when the intercom cracked alive. A whisper, filtered, mechanical, spoke the digits I'd memorized from the badge. My number. What? Then again slower. I froze mid-step. A figure moved behind the frosted glass of reception, close enough to fog it with each breath. But the shadow didn't match my posture. It waited. It mirrored only the breathing. When I turned back, the badge wasn't where I'd left it. It sat on the counter now, under the soft rain light that seeped through the blinds. A folded paper was tucked behind it, motel stationery, smudged from damp fingers. I unfolded it carefully, half expecting static to hiss from the walls. 4 words in thick pencil, pressure still visible. Don't let him leave. My pulse ticked in my throat. The badge was warm again, and the plastic smelled faintly of my own cologne. Someone had handled it. Maybe recently. Maybe for hours. Something shifted behind me, not a step, more like a breath that forgot where to stop. The air near my ear grew warm again, carrying that same neutral perfume, the one that always fades before dawn. Stay, a voice murmured, tone identical to mine, just slowed. I didn't turn. The reflection in the glass beside the counter showed both of us, briefly, like the light couldn't choose which version to keep. Then only one stayed, and it blinked at the wrong time. By morning, the rain had rinsed the parking lot clean. My car key was still on the desk, but the badge was gone. In its place lay a new check-in receipt, this one naming me Employee of the Day. The ink was still damp. I looked closer. Different fingerprints smudged across the plastic window, layered over mine as if many had worn that title before. The intercom clicked once, patient. Then silence. Would you sign for another life? Story 4. Twin rooms, one name. Late night in the old hotel corridor, 2 doors carried the same name. They gave me 2 rooms under the same alias. For flexibility, the manager said. The hallway smelled of polish and old linen, the kind that holds echoes. Both door tags read Mr. Vale. The letters looked printed twice, one slightly fainter, like a copy that forgot who came first. I stood between the doors, card in each hand. The air had that after-rain humidity that softens sound. Her shoulder brushed mine when she passed to see the numbers. Only a glance, but the perfume she'd just applied drifted close, clean, deliberate. The light from the hallway bent across her mouth as she smiled, and for a second the silence adjusted its breathing. Both cards worked on both locks. I slid the first one in, read blink, pause, read again. The second card answered with the same rhythm, as if the doors shared a pulse. She laughed softly, said something about matching hearts. I adjusted her collar without thinking. My fingertips grazed the warm edge of fabric, just enough for the motion to feel almost mistaken. Inside, the air conditioning hummed low, uneven. She spoke near my ear, close enough that the sentence ended as warmth against my skin instead of words. For a breath too long, I didn't move. The sound of the other room's vent answered her whisper, carrying it back in a voice neither of us owned. I left one suitcase in each room, trying to feel rational about it. Just logistics, I told myself. But every time I crossed the threshold, the other door clicked behind me as if sinking. Same pattern, same breath between sounds. I started to listen for it, counting seconds like a pulse I didn't control. At dinner, she sat close, too close for the setting. The table was small, the candle weak. When she shifted her leg, her knee found mine under the cloth and didn't pull back. The hum from the vent above us carried a note of my own cologne, but heavier, older. She smiled at the scent before I could say I hadn't worn any. Back upstairs, she leaned by the mirror, fixing her hair. One loose strand caught the light. I reached to move it aside. My fingers brushed her temple, the skin tightening under the touch like static. For a heartbeat, I thought the reflection blinked slower than she did. Silence held the corridor. Both rooms waited behind their identical doors. We didn't speak, even the carpet seemed to listen. The air pressed damp against us, shared breath or recycled from the vent. Then, faintly, both locks clicked open at once. She exhaled, the sound slid into the quiet like a key. Blankets began to shift inside the neighboring room, slow, dragging movements that matched the rhythm of our breathing. I stood at the threshold, watching the fabric pull toward the shared wall, as if someone were crawling just behind it. She whispered that the sound was just the vents, but her voice shook on just. She stepped back. I followed the scent left in her wake. When she reached for the light switch, I noticed a faint warmth still clinging to my wrist, where her hair had brushed it earlier. On the nightstand lay a keycard I didn't remember placing there. The code was the same as mine, but the surface smelled faintly of her perfume and my cologne together. A whisper came from the vent, soft, precise. My name, but in her tone. She leaned close to listen, hair grazing my cheek, her breath tracing a small circle near my ear. "It's still unlocked," she murmured. When I turned, she was looking past me toward the wall where the sound kept repeating. Two voices, mine and hers, saying the same word out of sync. Morning found one bed untouched, the other stripped bare. My suitcase sat open in the next room, keycard stabbed upright into the mattress like a claim. The hallway lights flickered twice in red, in perfect unison. Security later said the footage showed a silhouette using two cards at once. Both doors opening together. How many doors do you share with yourself? Story 5. Tagged baggage. Thus, train station lockers. A swap tag and a glued photograph. I dropped the suitcase into locker 312 just before dusk. The air in the station had that sterile chill, the kind that makes perfume hang too long. I'd printed a fake tag with another client's name. A small habit, part safety, part superstition. When the metal door clicked shut, I told myself I'd remember the sound. It felt like a quiet signature. Someone brushed past me as I keyed the code. Shoulders nearly touched. A trace of perfume, clean, recent, slipped between us, caught under the fluorescent hum. I didn't look up, but I saw the light draw her mouth in the locker glass. Calm, unreadable, gone before I could frame it. I adjusted my collar when she turned away. My fingers grazed the warm fabric at my neck. Just enough contact to feel like a mistake worth remembering. The screen on the locker blinked twice, waiting. For a second I thought I saw another reflection beside mine, but the corridor was already empty. Then a whisper came from behind, so close it fogged the edge of my ear. A woman's voice, low and deliberate, the same numbers I'd just entered. Each digit landed like breath against skin. I spun around, nothing. Just the faint echo of air conditioning pretending to be human. I waited for the sound of her steps, but the hall stayed quiet, too quiet for a station that size. A single announcement echoed from far away, distorted, like a memory of travel instead of travel itself. I told myself to leave, to forget the whisper. But curiosity has its own temperature, and mine was rising. When I sat on the metal bench to steady my thoughts, a knee brushed mine. Not hard, just enough for the nerves to recognize pattern. The bench was otherwise empty. My eyes tracked the space beside me, no one. Yet the warmth stayed, pressed into my skin like the ghost of fabric still breathing. I leaned forward, trying to shake the static off. A strand of hair had fallen over my eye. When I brushed it aside, a breath of warmth seemed to follow my hand, as if someone had moved with me. My skin reacted before thought did, tiny shivers rising like a map of doubt. We both, whoever we were, stayed very still. The locker row hummed with low electricity, a kind of artificial breathing. No footsteps, no announcements now. Just that charged quiet where air learns to listen. I could hear my own pulse marking time, waiting for something to name itself. When I finally stood, the locker screen flashed green. My code had been accepted again, though I hadn't touched it. The door released with a soft metallic sigh. Inside, the suitcase waited, but the tag was wrong. Different color, different name. The name of a client who'd gone missing 2 weeks ago. My chest tightened, caught between disbelief and recognition. I lifted the handle. A printed photo had been taped beneath it, corners damp from adhesive. My own face, sleeping, half-turned on a bed I'd left that morning. When I peeled it off, the paper stuck to my fingers, leaving a trace of warmth that shouldn't have been there. The scent of perfume lingered, soft and new, refusing to fade. A voice leaned into my ear, same cadence, same hush as before. Last time, it said, 11-4. Don't repeat. The sound came from the locker, yet felt inside my skin. I turned, no. One stood there. Only my reflection, a shade too close, breathing when I didn't. At my next flight, the luggage carousel spat out something familiar. A tag with my handwriting, but dated 2 days ahead. Beneath it, another photo. Me again, asleep in a seat that hadn't boarded yet. I didn't touch it this time. Just watched it circle, patient, recording. Who takes your picture when you trust the trip too much?